Hey there, my name is Shauna McGrath. I'm a counseling astrologer in San Diego, California. This video is about Venus-Saturn. So particularly while these planets are in aspect to one another, I wanted to share with you what this looks like if you have this aspect in your birth chart, in your natal chart, via transit, or if you're just interested in learning more about astrology and you want to know how these planets connect to one another. So there is a distinction between if this is in your birth chart or if it's via transit. Even if it's in your birth chart, there may be an ebb and flow of how these things are more present at one point or another in your life, and this depends on what's actually happening in your life, and then also the whole full spectrum of transits that are happening. So Venus is a symbol of relationships, love, beauty, sex, sensuality. It's a symbol of the partner as well. And Venus shows what we are attracted to, what we find pleasing, what we find soothing. Can also be a symbol of our style of attraction as well. Saturn is a symbol of wisdom, power, autonomy, authority, land, structural things. It's a symbol of tradition. It's a symbol of the authority and power and strength that comes from doing something over a long period of time. Mastery is what Saturn is about. So it's really interesting because Jupiter and Saturn are both symbols of authority. Jupiter is more of a symbol of spiritual authority and spiritual wisdom and wisdom through study of philosophy and spiritual connection and culture even, versus Saturn is more about power and authority via doing things consistently over a long period of time. It's that practice makes perfect kind of feeling. And Saturn is a symbol of authority in the realm of the material world. So jobs, careers, how it is that you present yourself in the world. Now, when these two are together, it shows when a person is a lover, Venus, of Saturn kind of things. There's a love for an appreciation for things that are older or more traditional, or like even a love for things like understanding history and that kind of thing. I find that people that have Venus-Saturn, it's not uncommon for them to be in relationships where there is a significant age difference, and this can go on either side. You can be the Saturn partner or you can be the Venus partner. So the first part of life, people with this in their birth chart, they tend to be attracted to partners, people, etc. that are older than them. They tend to be attracted to people that serve as like a mentor to them. They seek this wisdom, this power, this authority, versus in the later stages of life, a person with Venus-Saturn will tend to attract or be attracted to people that are much younger than them, the Venus partner, so to speak. Now, it's not, like every single relationship that you have will be this way, but it's a common tendency that I've noticed. And the reason for this is that you are playing a part in this. You are embodying the Venus energy, or you are embodying the Saturn kind of energy. Another pattern that can come up with Venus-Saturn is that Saturn can express itself in a more challenging kind of way. Saturn is also associated with judgment, with criticalness, even depression sometimes. So for a person that has this, it can show where the partner tends to be more critical or judgmental, or the person that has it themselves can take on these kind of tendencies. Now, it doesn't mean that that necessarily needs to happen, but it is something that I've noticed comes up, this criticalness, because When a person with Venus and Saturn, or Saturn in any aspect to a personal planet, really, when a person has this strong Saturn essence, they need to feel like a sense of power and control and autonomy. And if they don't feel this, there can be a tendency to go into fear or to trying to control in order to feel secure. And so I think that, you know, ironically, the way to work with this is really through working with Saturn in your own life. And Venus-Saturn can also show where there's like a power dynamic that comes up in relationships where one person tries to take care of the other person in a certain way or to have control over the other person. Sometimes this works well if both parties, like if it feels like it's a good harmonious exchange. Sometimes it can be more problematic. But overall, Venus-Saturn, there is this association with really being a lover of Saturn kind of things. So like, again, tradition, age, wisdom. This is a person who does well with activities that that require dedication and devotion. And these people that have this aspect also benefit from connecting with people over time and building trust over time. So this is really important because Saturn, in order to calm down, Saturn requires consistency and trust. So people that have Venus-Saturn, they may have a hard time instantly connecting and building strong bonds very quickly. Their bonds are built, the really strong ones are built over time with continued exposure to people and continued trust and being able to depend on someone, that person does what they say, they mean what they say, they do what they say. They're reliable. That is super important. So how does this look with a highly sensitive person? I think that's important. That's something that I've been wanting to bring into these this series on Venus is what are the things that may come up, especially for a person who has a high sensitivity trait, also known as sensory processing sensitivity. So I think that one of the things that I notice most is that people who have a high sensitivity, they're already really working with challenges around setting boundaries, around developing a healthy sense of self, a strong ego. Those are already things that can be challenging for a highly sensitive person. And so with Venus-Saturn, we're adding in that layer of possible tendency towards power dynamics and tendency towards criticalness in the relationship. So I think that that's something that can really come up for a highly sensitive that has this, is that it challenges their sense of self, and they benefit from really working with how do they feel powerful, how do they stand up for themselves, how do they take responsibility for themselves. That's a big thing for Venus-Saturn, is how do you take responsibility for yourself. And there can also be a tendency with highly sensitive people to connect with partners where there's codependent behavior that starts to happen, a codependent dynamic. Codependence is when a person takes responsibility for someone else's feelings, thoughts, or actions. Where if someone feels bad, you feel like you need to do something in order to fix them. That can happen very naturally with this. And I think, again, it's the same as with the criticalness. The more that you work with your own sense of self and you being Saturn, you being the one that is responsible for yourself and not being responsible for everyone else, that can be very helpful for someone that has this aspect. Now, if you're having Saturn in aspect to Venus via transit, this can be a time around really taking responsibility for yourself in relationships at that time. It can be a time of doing the work that you need to in order to make sure that the relationship is healthy at a foundational level. So a lot of people may end up going into therapy or having like a real talk with their partner when they have this kind of aspect. It's about being very practical and being very honest with yourself about what it is that you need. Now, people that have this in their birth chart, they're constantly working with this energy, and there's a constant confrontation of, is this relationship dynamic working with you or working for you? Is it sustainable? These are Saturn themes: sustainable, being responsible, doing the thing that is that's going to work over the long term. Let's see. Some other things that I wanted to mention too is that it can be really interesting for a person with this aspect to explore their ancestry. That's typically something that is Saturn associated, so that could be very therapeutic or just interesting for you as well. And working with issues around boundaries, around your sense of authority over yourself. This is big, big stuff for Venus-Saturn. So that is what I wanted to say about that today. I hope that you found this helpful. If you did, leave me a comment and let me know. If you're interested in working with this more within your own personal birth chart, I do offer astrological counseling sessions, astrological readings. You can find out more about that on my website, shaunamcgrathastrology.com. And until then, until I see you the next time, I'm wishing you a wonderful week, and I'll talk to you soon.